Yo, what's the deal? You know what I'm saying? It's your boy Cartier. You in Cartier World today. We got another reaction video, bro. I need y'all to like, comment, sub up, man. Like, comment, sub up. Y'all do y'all thing, man. Today, we got another video, man. P. Diddy's alleged drug mule arrested. Everything we know, man. We gonna tap into this and really keep deep diving, man. Y'all let me know what y'all want to know about this Diddy case, too, man. We covering everything hot. You know what I'm saying? We coming back to back. We need 5,000 subs though, bro. We on a mission, so let's get to that. You know what I'm saying? But let's see what's up.
Brand new video just released shows the arrest of P. Diddy's alleged drug mule, who was taken.
That nigga walking out of the U.S. Customs Border Protection building, man. This shit's serious.
Custody while trying to board the rapper's private jet. We don't hear a word from Brendan Paul, the alleged drug mule, but he doesn't look too happy when he's put in the backseat of a squad car.
Nigga ain't said nothing. That don't mean he won't sing to the police, though. Don't let him get in that interrogation room.
This is really big. This is really big because you're thinking about this huge mogul. Like, everyone knows who Puffy is, who Diddy is, who Puff Daddy is, who Sean Combs is. No matter what his name, you know who he is.
Here's everything we know so far about that alleged drug mule, Brendan Paul, and the P. Diddy case so far.
The question that I will have and I'm curious to see what will happen is that whether they're going to use those charges against Brendan to try to flip him, to try to get him to cooperate.
Of course they are.
Any type of prosecution against Puffy or others.
Right off the bat, let's start by saying no criminal charges have been filed against P. Diddy. You know him as that Diddy, Puff Daddy, Puffy, Sean Combs. He's a rapper, record exec, and producer who's been in the spotlight for decades. And while he doesn't have any charges against him right now, they could be on the way. We say that because two of Diddy's homes, one in Holmby Hills in California and the other on Star Island in Miami, have been raided this week by Homeland Security.
Yep.
We sat down with former homicide prosecutor and trial attorney Bernarda Villalona to make sense of all this.
So there's a lot of bombshells that have been dropped recently, and I think the execution of the search warrant is really what's bringing so much attention to it, because we're no longer talking about civil allegations now.
Yeah, bro. Nigga, when they raided that man Holmes, boy, we knew it was up, bro. The feds ain't coming for no reason, bro. They probably just trying to keep it under wraps. They don't want important information leaking out. Maybe that'll help Diddy prepare. They want to win this case that they gonna eventually present. It's a miracle they ain't filed no criminal charges yet. You feel me? But they coming. Them feds, boy. If Diddy beat them feds, that nigga Jesus Christ out here.
Criminal investigation, which is a completely different ballpark.
Bernarda mentioned those civil lawsuits, and there's been a handful. We first reported one in November of last year when Diddy's ex-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura filed suit against him. You probably know her as the singer Cassie. So Cassie filed this lawsuit under New York's Adult Survivors Act. That act meant that between November 2022 and November 2023, sexual assault survivors could file civil suits against their alleged predators, regardless of whether the statute of limitations had passed. Cassie's lawsuit dropped several major bombshells, including her claims that Diddy beat her, that he raped her, and also forced her to have sex with prostitutes while recording it on video.
Diddy, bruh. Diddy, man, shame on you. You tripping, nigga. Good Lord, man. Everybody on you, man. Hey.
Suit also alleged that Diddy made her carry a gun, which is a theme we saw in a different civil suit, which we'll get to soon. But first, back to Cassie, who settled with Diddy outside of court just one day after the lawsuit was filed. Also in November of last year, accuser Joy Dickerson-Neal filed a civil suit against Diddy in Manhattan Supreme Court. Now, according to her lawsuit, Diddy videotaped an assault of Joy back in 1991 when she was a student at Syracuse University. Joy says Diddy drugged her, sexually assaulted her, and then passed around this videotape to other people in the music industry. At the time the lawsuit was filed, Diddy's rep called it a money grab. Things were calm for a few months until February of this year when Rodney Jones, known as Lil Rod, filed a lengthy civil suit against Diddy and several others, accusing the singer of sexual assault and dropping some major bombshells.
Diddy, I want you to look at this nigga, homie. This the nigga. See, we already got two women. Cassie, woman from Syracuse, same. They basically alleging that Diddy did the same types of acts towards them. This is a third person. But just look at this nigga face, homie. Diddy. You better go down because you wanted to play with this nigga booty hole, man. You crazy.
Entire filing was just gasp worthy.
That was former prosecutor Melba Pearson, who broke down the filing with us just this week. The suit name dropped several celebrities, from Jennifer Lopez and Prince Harry to Cuba Gooding Jr., who Lil Rod accused of unwanted sexual touching while on Diddy's yacht.
I'm getting the feeling where there's smoke, there's fire, right? Because now we have two different instances where you're accused of the same type of behavior, years apart.
Yeah.
I think there's something there. And I don't know that Cuba Gooding Jr. is going to escape from that one because he already saw definitely people moving away from him within Hollywood circles and other circles once those first sexual assault allegations came out. So at this point,
they looking real sexual on that.
Get away with it a second time.
As for J-Lo, the suit claimed that Diddy required her to carry an illegal gun that was used in a 1999 shooting at a New York nightclub.
Bro, why y'all, man? Nigga, we all know Diddy gotta have his shorty carry the woo-wop. Gotta carry a pistol on her, nigga. That just come with being Diddy little main thing. Being his side piece, man or woman. You gotta have that strap. No Diddy. You gotta have that. You gotta take the strap, homie. It's crazy out here.
She's named as somebody who was carrying a weapon. Could that be incriminating for Jennifer Lopez?
It can be, but with a huge caveat, right? If I'm not mistaken, that shooting did not result in a death. I know that somebody was harmed, but I don't believe anyone was killed. Because of that, you had the statute of limitations to deal with, which is basically a prolonged amount of a certain amount of time that a prosecutor has to be able to bring charges against someone. And it varies from state to state. But the one thing is consistent is that there is no statute of limitations on murder. So if P. Diddy had actually killed this person or the person died as a result of their injuries, now J-Lo could be brought into the mix as a co-defendant because of the fact that the person has passed away. But if the person is alive and maybe they had serious injuries or whatever the case may be, statute of limitations would run, and it is highly likely at this juncture that statute of limitations have expired, therefore she does not have any criminal liability. But the reputational damage might be a different story because now she's branding herself as something very different than who she was back then. Back then, she was very much Jenny from the block. She was, dating a variety of hip hop artists. She was very much in that world. Now she's married to Ben Affleck. She's trying to, portray herself in a different manner. So now her past is going to come back to haunt her, and we don't know what that's going to mean for her future in terms of movie deals, music deals, or anything like that. So I think for her, it might be more reputational damage than criminal liability.
The same can be said for Prince Harry, who was casually mentioned in the lawsuit. His name only comes up once, and it's almost an afterthought. The court doc reads, quote, Mr. Combs was known for throwing the best parties, affiliation with, and or sponsorship of Mr. Combs' sex trafficking parties garnered legitimacy and access to celebrities such as famous athletes, political figures, artists, musicians, and international dignitaries like British royal Prince Harry. Why even name Prince Harry? There's no allegations against him or anything, but why bring him up?
I think it may have been a move to bring more credibility to the filing and say that, basically he being Diddy, was using his fame, fortune, and influence to insulate himself. So he was able to legitimize some of the activities he was doing by having these lavish parties, bringing all these A-list celebrities, but somewhere in a back room or somewhere in another wing, horrible things were happening. So the fact that Prince Harry was there does not necessarily mean he was participating in what was happening. And just because you were at a party doesn't mean you know what's happening in every inch of the house. I mean, if you think about it, if the party's
That
being
look
thrown in a
bad,
mansion,
man.
there are various floors and wings. So it is completely possible that he was there and did not participate. Now, if you had said Prince Andrew, especially as a result of the allegations that came out in connection with the Epstein case, that they were close and that they traveled together, and there was a person that alleged that he had sexually assaulted her while she was underage, that would be a different story. But Prince Harry and the way that it was mentioned seemed to be very, again, just sort of trying to bring legitimacy and talk about these were the people that Diddy surrounded himself by to protect himself.
In this specific lawsuit, Lil Rod lists more than 10 plaintiffs, but includes additional names, like that of Brendan Paul, who's listed as Diddy's Mule, who allegedly, quote, acquires and distributes Mr. Combs' drugs and guns. On Monday, Paul was reportedly arrested at the airport in Miami while trying to board Diddy's private jet. Florida officers were working with Homeland Security and Customs when they found drugs in his bag. These drugs were tested, and the results led to his arrest. He was booked for cocaine and controlled substance possession.
So far, Brendan has only been arrested.
Wow. All he wanted to do was ball. You can see he hooped for Syracuse, college hooper. Then he wanted to ball in the big leagues and then with them, Diddy and them. Young nigga move that dope. He was moving that dope. You know what I'm saying? Your boy getting caught up with Diddy. I think he finna tell on Diddy, man.
For possession of a controlled substance, and this is for the narcotics that they recovered, I believe, in one of his bags that was on the airplane where he was stopped in the airport, Miami airport, on Monday. So they haven't linked that to Puffy at all. As of now, it's just for the simple possession, which is still a felony. The question that I will have, and I'm curious to see what will happen, is that whether they're going to use those charges against Brendan to try to flip him, to try to get him to cooperate against any type of prosecution against Puffy or others.
All of this means Brendan Paul is facing felonies in Florida and could even face more charges in the future.
I mean, a felony, you can still do jail time. So it's still a serious matter. It's still a serious charge because you can do jail time having to deal with felony possession of narcotics. But just because he just got charged with those 2 counts, it doesn't mean that in the future he's not going to be charged with several other counts. It all depends where this investigation leads. But again, if I were Puffy, if I were anyone that were associated with Brendan Paul, I would be nervous because it's possible that he can't cooperate in order to avoid any jail time and actually sing on other people.
You talked about him flipping or working with prosecutors, investigators, and giving more details. What would all of that look like behind the scenes?
Well, it's something that we're not supposed to know about, but given that I used to be a prosecutor for 16 years, when it comes to cooperating, well, number one, he has to be willing to cooperate. And that's going to be a conversation between the prosecutors and his attorneys will talk to Brendan to see whether that's an avenue they want to take. I mean, personally, depending on how much exposure he has in terms of jail or how much exposure he has about pending other charges that can come about this entire investigation. It may be a question where he's like, it's not worth it for him to cooperate because he'll be scared of any backlash. He'll be scared of being blacklisted in the industry, and he'll just be scared in general that he'll be known as a person that cooperated against Puffy. But this is a conversation that he needs to have with his attorney, and also for the prosecutors to determine whether they're even willing to offer any type of cooperation deal to Mr. Paul.
Here's what we know about Brendan Paul so far. He's 25 years old and from Ohio. He played guard for Syracuse University's basketball team for 2 years before transferring to Fairmont State University. According to a post on his Facebook, he started making beats on his laptop during the pandemic, which kickstarted his work in the music industry.
Mm.
Eventually, he found Diddy and worked on Diddy's Love album, Off the Grid, that was released last fall. Since his arrest a few days ago, Paul has been released on $2,500 bail. The rest of what we know about Paul comes from Lil Rod's February lawsuit that described him as a direct report of Diddy's chief of staff. That's Christina Quorum, who's also listed as a plaintiff in the lawsuit. As this so-called direct report, Paul would allegedly, quote, be responsible for ensuring payment for sex workers in cash. He also allegedly, quote, directly committed and perpetrated violations of Chapter 77 by aiding, abetting, and inducing the sex trafficking venture and sex trafficking of Plaintiff Jones. So Plaintiff Jones is Lil Rod, who alleges Diddy sexually assaulted him and forced him to have sex with prostitutes. Lil Rod's lawsuit goes on to state that Diddy's associates, including Brendan Paul, would allegedly recruit, entice, coerce, harbor, transport, obtain, and provide Mr. Jones, as well as others, into commercial sex acts through means of force, threats of force, fraud, abusive process, and coercion.
I'm sure that those people that are named in that lawsuit are very nervous right now. Very nervous, even more.
Hell yeah, they nervous. They ain't Diddy. They ain't got the same protection. Hey, man, is Brendan Paul going to go out like a loke and keep his mouth shut, or is he singing like a bird? I don't know if he going to go out like a loke. If he really pushed that dope, that's his, he don't want to, like, you know, he can't have the image of being a rat if he want to continue pushing that dope. Because now you losing connections. You know, he might have been a dope man for all the celebrities, but once he go down as a rat, that's over with. You're going to have to start a whole new career, new life, you know. But, I mean, his spot blown up anyway, so he got to really just, it's a matter of where he want the direction of his life to go in at this point. You going to keep pushing that dope, nigga, or you know what I'm saying? Or you gonna move on to something else. Hell, become a shit. You might could write a couple books off this shit.
Now after the execution of that search warrant, but also nervous because he revealed about these secret recordings, and they're wondering whether they could have been secretly recorded. Are there recordings of them engaging in these type of activities? Because even though it may not be criminal, some of those activities, it still does tarnish their image, so they can still take a toll in terms of their branding. But in terms of the lawsuit itself, it's very damaging. You got to think that several companies have already distanced themselves from Puffy, and there haven't been any criminal charges. All you see is a civil lawsuit. So I think there's still going to be more things that are going to come about as a result of that civil lawsuit. But I think the most damaging, again, is Cassie's lawsuit. But more importantly, I think is Little Rod's lawsuit that was filed.
And in the civil lawsuit, Lil Rod specifically, that Brendan Paul is listed almost 20 times. It's alleged that he's a drug mule. So he's getting different kinds of drugs for P. Diddy. He's also procuring prostitutes or sex workers. So if this is eventually investigated and prosecutors determine that there's enough to charge him, what sort of charges would he face?
Well, what you can see from the civil lawsuit, that is possible that Little Rod would be serving as a witness in any criminal prosecution having to deal with Brendan Paul and him being a drug mule. And where you're talking about him being a drug mule, he is facing significant jail time. First off, anything over a day or 2 days or even a month for someone who's never been arrested is significant jail time. But I see Little Rod being one of the main witnesses if Brendan Paul were to be arrested for drug trafficking, because he's saying that he has direct knowledge and photographs that he can authenticate of Brendan Paul being in possession of narcotics in these parties or these gatherings that Puffy was having.
To be very clear, Brendan Paul doesn't face those criminal charges, only the controlled substance charges out of Florida. Let's pause this video just for a second to thank Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring it. I mean, I think it's pretty clear from the body cameras we cover, it's not always safe out there. And when you're hurt, it can be pretty dialing pound controlled substances. Are the investigators in that case then working with the federal investigators about this ongoing investigation into P. Diddy?
Well, more than likely that the federal investigators, of course, are going to get the documents and anything related to this arrest, because they want to see if there's they're able to connect this to their bigger investigation. Again, we keep on saying that the investigation is into Puffy. We don't have direct knowledge that it is. Of course, that will make an inferences because his homes were searched, but we believe that what they're wanting to do is do further investigation with law enforcement, the Florida case, to see if there's a way that they can tie his arrest to Puffy. But as of now, there has been no link between his arrest on Monday and to Puffy.
Other people listed in the lawsuits or who are close with Diddy haven't been arrested or charged either, but it's possible they could face future charges. We've talked a lot about Diddy's associates because there are several people who are listed in multiple of these lawsuits. He's known to have friends who are with him a lot, almost like an entourage. If I'm one of those people right now and I know that there has been a search warrant executed, that Brendan Paul has been arrested, what sort of steps should I be taking or what is running through my mind?
Girl, what they need to do is get an attorney immediately, and not just any attorney, but a criminal defense attorney with trial experience to know how to manage an investigation, how to manage what the next steps would be, how to manage to try to be proactive in trying to avoid charges being brought against their client or to try to minimize their exposure. But I think they should be preparing that there may be called in at least for questioning or to be interviewed by law enforcement. So they should be preparing for that.
Is it possible that we could also hear from other associates who knew Diddy very well and have seen some of these interactions?
Absolutely. You got to think with law enforcement, the U.S. Attorney's Office, even with the District Attorney's Office, that they can issue subpoenas. And issuing subpoenas to these people will require them to appear either before a grand jury or before a court to appear to be interviewed. That doesn't mean that they will appear. It doesn't mean that when they do appear, they'll be giving information, but at least that they will be required to appear. So what would be interesting is whether, if there's a grand jury presentation, is whether any of these individuals will be required to appear before the grand jury to give any type of testimony. But again, the most important part of what they should do is to get a defense attorney to be able to guide them through this process, because you don't want to give conflicted information to a U.S. Attorney's Office or to law enforcement and later on be prosecuted for giving that misinformation.
But without any current charges, Diddy is free to do what he pleases, and that includes leaving the country. And we know that when Brendan Paul was being arrested, it was as he was boarding P. Diddy's private jet. They were planning to fly away, go wherever. Is it possible, because Diddy hasn't faced any charges or anything, that he could just leave the country?
Absolutely. There's nothing holding him here. He hasn't been arrested. His passport hasn't been taken. So he's free to leave the country. He can leave the continent. He can do what he wants because there is no criminal arrest. If there's an arrest, then the judge will set certain parameters as to where and when he can travel, and if he can travel, whether he needs to get permission from the court. But for now, he's free to leave as he wishes.
In the end, it's likely the lawsuits against Diddy that led to his homes being searched in the first place. And we've talked about these civil lawsuits, now potential criminal charges against him.
Diddy better get his ass on that plane and never come back. You need to do a Russell Simmons, nigga. Don't ever come back to the U.S., boy. Because you going down, you come back, they going to try to get you for something. You go down Bali, you ain't gonna be able to talk to nobody. Niggas could come see you, but that's it. That's it, brother.
Is it possible that this criminal investigation wouldn't have even started had it not been for these several civil lawsuits against P. Diddy?
Absolutely. And I think the one that really triggered it was the lawsuit by Cassie back in November of 2023, because there are several bombshell allegations about sex trafficking inside of that lawsuit. Of course, that's a civil lawsuit. Those are only allegations, and ultimately ended up settling the very next day. However, even though it's just civil allegations, I think it led to setting up the frame for law enforcement to actually look more into it. Let's just remember, when we think about R. Kelly, what spurred the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the feds to get involved? It was the documentary Surviving R. Kelly that spurred that investigation. Here we have something similar, and it's the civil lawsuits, that being with Cassie, possibly about the other females, the three other lawsuits, but I don't think it was those lawsuits. I think primarily it's the one with Cassie and the one that was filed by the male just last month, because the one with the male specifically states that there are video recordings and there are photographs of alleged criminal activity. And I think that was enough for the Department of Justice, for the U.S. Attorney's Office, for the feds to get involved and look into it further.
What sort of information or evidence would they be looking for in this investigation?
Well, I think the main piece of evidence that they're looking for is video recordings
Yeah,
or cell phones
pictures.
or anything having to deal with cameras. Because from the civil lawsuits that have been filed, specifically the one that was filed by the male just in February, he states that there are video recordings and that Puffy had secret cameras that were located in the different rooms inside of the home. So, by law enforcement recovering those video cameras, recovering laptops, recovering cell phones, they're able to investigate and do a forensic investigation into those electronic devices and try to get additional evidence as to a crime that has taken place, which will be able to move along any criminal investigation towards possible charges.
And because we
So they looking for that video, homie. Are they gonna find the video, man? Hopefully Puffy, man, you know, I don't know if he cleared all that shit out, but it's looking bad for you, bro. I would get the hell up out of there. I would get on, honestly. But I don't know if P. Diddy gonna do that, man. You know, it's looking bad for him, man. Let me know what y'all think, bro. Is the drug mule gonna become a star witness or what, man? Y'all let me know, bro. It's Cartier. You on Cartier World.